Welcome to today's webinar and good afternoon. My name is Cara Kurtz and I am the Senior Coordinator of Business Development at ASTA, and I will also be the organizer for today's presentation. If you've been joining us for our Monday updates, welcome back, and to any new attendees, thank you for joining us today. I would like to point out with the majority of the world now working remote, our external webinar service has been experiencing some technical difficulties driven by high traffic volumes. Should you experience any of these difficulties, please try logging off and dialing back in. If this does not work, please do not fret, as this webinar is being recorded and will be hosted on asta.org as soon as possible. If you are having trouble hearing this presentation, please make sure that your speakers are turned all the way up, as the only way to listen to today's call is going to be through your computer audio. If your computer audio is not working, please try clicking the registration link from your phone in your email app. Though all audience members are muted, we certainly want to hear from you all, but with so many people on today's call, background noise would prove to be prohibitive, and we just want to ensure that everyone can hear our entire presentation. Finally, again, please remember that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for your on-demand viewing at asta.org/COVID-19 immediately following this webinar. We're happy to welcome today's presenters, ASTA's President and CEO, Zane Kirby, our Executive Vice President of Advocacy, Evan Peck, and our General Counsel, Peter Lambasso, as well as our Director of Advocacy, Ms. Genevieve Strand. Please note, due to the high volume of questions that we've been receiving, we will not be answering questions following today's webcast. However, our team is building an additional resource page for members, asta.org/COVID-19 member, where you will be able to ask questions, get answers, and review resources as they are updated daily. Zane and Genevieve will review more of this information today as well as Monday during our next webinar. Here you'll see an overview of today's webinar and what we'll be discussing. First, we will have an introduction from Zane, followed by an advocacy overview by Evan, and then Peter's going to go a little bit more into the nitty-gritty, followed by Genevieve talking about the airline economic stabilization loans. Now, without further ado, I would like to turn it over to our President and CEO, Mr. Zane Kirby.
Well, thank you, Cara, and thank you, everyone, for joining today's special call. ASTA has been hosting COVID-19 update calls every week on Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and will continue to do so as long as needed. With the significant legislative developments that have unfolded this week, coupled with the urgency that surrounds the ongoing market failure of the travel industry at large, a special call was warranted today. ASTA's Evan Peck, Genevieve Strand, and Peter Lambasso will provide an overview of the CARES Act details today. Monday's call will provide additional information. Before we get into the details today, I also want to mention that we are building out an exclusive member-only resource that Cara just mentioned, and it's asta.org/COVID-19 member. This will be where members can take a deeper dive on the analysis of the bill and specifics about applying relief to your business. Today, we're providing a high-level overview and some of the financial relief options, some available now, some that soon will be. On our members-only resource page, premium members will also have access to ASTA's General Counsel and our Government Affairs team. Wednesday night, the U.S. Senate voted unanimously, 96-0, 4 senators were in self-quarantine, to pass the largest and most expensive legislation in U.S. history, the CARES Act. It is 880 pages long. Following procedure, the U.S. House was given 24 hours notice to attend today's debate and vote. There was some angst regarding today's House of Representatives vote. Any dissent today would have forced more debate and a full House vote tomorrow. But in an encouraging sign that sanity has prevailed in the U.S. House, the bill passed today by unanimous consent, removing the need for a vote tomorrow. The President has already signaled that he will sign the bill immediately into law. First, for those unaware, there's a publication here in D.C., Washington, D.C., called Politico. It is to politics what the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, or The Economist are to business. Politico is actually all three of those publications wrapped into one. Consequently, you usually do not want to read your own name in its pages or on its website. But last night, they, quote unquote, scored the CARES stimulus bill. The article was titled, quote, "Who got special deals and why they got them," end of quote. Along with protections for military higher-ups, the student loan industry, and credit reporting, who tops Politico's list of who got what and why they got it? Travel agents. We'll forgive them for not referring to us as advisors. A link to this Politico article is in today's Ask the Travel Advisor Daily and seen on the screen here. Make no mistake, ASTA's unprecedented advocacy campaign is the reason. As I described on Monday, over 28,000 emails and phone calls went through our system, coupled with our testimony before the Small Business Administration and the hundreds of thousands of ASTA PAC dollars spent over the last 5 years educating lawmakers about the important role we play in the travel business. This is what we are built for. No one could have predicted today's pandemic, but this crisis underscores the need for collective action, to speak with one voice. For anyone who sells or dispenses travel advice for a living, your voice is ASTA, bar none. We obtained an early copy of the bill's language on Wednesday. Since then, our advocacy team, Evan, Genevieve, Peter, and Lou, have been working around the clock to dissect the bill and distill the meaningful language and provisions for you, our agency and advisor members. Within the Act, there are multiple avenues for ASTA members to petition for relief. There's a special $25 billion window offered to airlines and, quote, their ticket agents. This particular provision was the impetus for Politico's article. The potential for waste and abuse is great, especially since needs are high and immediate. Republican members of Congress in support of our relief are especially concerned and want assurances that businesses and individuals won't take advantage of this crisis. While most of our members will access relief through the Small Business Administration program, ASTA is offered to assist the Treasury Department manage applications in the airline relief portion. It's never been more important to be an ASTA member than today. For our businesses with 500 employees or fewer, the news is even better. In many cases, portions of the loan program, including payroll and rent expenses, are forgivable in whole or in part, effectively making them a grant. More details will be forthcoming by both Peter and Genevieve. Before I turn you over to our talented team, I wanted to offer a few specific thanks. First, ASTA's Executive Committee and Board of Directors has been stellar and steadfast in their support. Our Chairman, Dave Hirschberger's calm counsel has been integral to our focus. If any of you haven't seen the video short put together by our Vice Chairman, Mark Casto, please do. It distills the essence of our message to Congress beautifully. Denise Jackson and Jackie Friedman round out our ASTA's Executive Committee. They, along with the entire Board of Directors, have been key counselors and rapid response experts. So many consortia and host agency leaders and rank and file members have believed in and supported ASTA. This win is shared by all. After Monday's call, Steph Lee of Host Agency Reviews pledged a very nice sum of money to host new independent contractor members at ASTA. Steph said she wanted more ICs to benefit from ASTA's work and network community. Thank you, Steph. And Jennifer Cochran, Meredith Hill, and Vanessa McGovern of Gifted Travel Network hung up from ASTA's all-member call on Monday and made a chairman's level, our highest level, contribution to ASTA PAC. Thank you. You learn a lot about people when the chips are down. Again, thank all of you on the call for your unwavering support of ASTA. There are long days ahead. It's going to take more than an all clear from the CDC and WHO to restore confidence in the travel system. We also have to stay vigilant, reminding suppliers that there is and will be life after COVID-19, and they need to treat our members, and by extension the traveling public, fairly. We are all in this together. So next up, we'll have Evan provide an advocacy overview, then Peter will detail unemployment benefits for independent contractors and economic distress loans, and Genevieve will provide more details on small business and economic stabilization loans. Over to you, Evan.
Thanks, Zane, and thanks everybody for being on the call today. Before we get into the details of what's in the bill, I wanted to take a moment to not celebrate. Today is not a time for celebration. We know there's a lot of pain out there, but sort of reflect on what's happened over the past few weeks from our standpoint, from the coronavirus situation itself to the lobbying scramble in D.C. over a $2 trillion bill, which, as Zane mentioned, is the largest legislation ever passed by the U.S. Congress, to ASTA's advocacy campaign within that. Everything was completely unprecedented, and we had no playbooks to turn to. On March 10th, our former chairman, Jay Ellenby, testified before the House Small Business Committee. This was as the crisis was really heating up. He did a fantastic job representing our members and putting travel into the conversation about businesses that are getting hurt really bad right now. And in normal times, this would have been the highlight of our year, having a member testify before Congress. The last time this happened, I'm told, is 2002. But in this case, it was really just the beginning of our work, and a really extraordinary time for those who work at ASTA or members of ASTA. We really worked around the clock, meeting with members of Congress and staff members on key committees on Capitol Hill, meeting after meeting. Us and also we have an outside lobbying firm called Banner Public Affairs, who's done a tremendous job, meeting after meeting until the buildings closed to the public on March 12th. I think Genevieve and I had the last in-person Capitol Hill meeting at the afternoon of March 12th. Then we shifted over to phone calls and did just pretty much around-the-clock phone calls for the next a few weeks. On the grassroots side, the campaign shattered every record in the books. Our last high water mark was the fight over California AB 5. Anybody remember that? Where we had 2,998 people email or call their state legislators on that issue. Since March 13th, 2 weeks ago, when we launched our federal grassroots campaign, as Zane mentioned, 28,604 people have used asta.org to contact their members of Congress. Obviously, it speaks to the extraordinary situation that we're in right now. I know a lot of those who participated are on the call today. I want to say thank you. Our members worked tirelessly to get the message across with their members of Congress. You know, really the most frequent question I've gotten over the past few weeks is, what can I do to help? That just shows you the attitude, even in a crisis situation, of our members, and I really, really appreciate it. And thanks to the work that we've done together over the past few years in terms of our legislative day, when people come to Washington, D.C. to meet with their members of Congress, there are relationships that have been developed between our members and their members of Congress and their staff, almost as important. And so they had somebody to call. We were in a crisis situation, but we knew them, right? We weren't going in there for the first time, basically with our hand out. We were already had established relationships. So I commend our members who really have stepped up over the past few weeks. We work with allies within the travel industry as well. We had GBTA and ACT and CITA and U.S. Tour Operators Association and NTA and Las Vegas CVB sign on to a support letter for our request. A lot of these folks had their own requests to Congress as well, so we really appreciate that support. Through it all, our objectives were constant. It was really two things. If Congress was going to give any targeted relief to the travel industry, travel agencies had to be included in that relief. That's one. Two is we wanted to get as many different options for our members to get financial relief as possible. We did not get every single last thing that we asked for, but I believe that we succeeded on these two fronts. And Peter and Genevieve are going to tell you some of the details. They too have been working around the clock. We've been looking at this bill, just going through it with a fine-tooth comb over the past few days. They are tremendous colleagues. They're very knowledgeable. And one key number I want you all to keep in mind as you're going through this is 500 employees. If you have less than 500 employees, there's going to be a set of benefits that are best for you, we think. If you have more than that, there's going to be a set of benefits or paths of relief that are more appropriate to you. But there are multiple options in any case. So thank you to Zane again for his leadership. Thank you to everybody being on the call. Thank you to all the ASTA members out there. We really appreciate it. And I'm going to turn it over now to Peter.
Thank you, Evan, for that great update, and thank you for all your great work. We are really honored and privileged to have Evan Peck on our staff, as he has done amazing work along with the rest of the advocacy team. Now I'm going to run down a couple provisions of the CARES Act that seem most relevant to the particular sectors of our industry. I'm going to start with the independent contractors. As those of you who are on Monday's webinar may remember, I talked briefly about the fact that 1099s generally are not eligible to claim unemployment benefits. In order to put what the CARES Act does into some context, I wanted to take a minute to explain why ICs generally are not able to claim unemployment benefits. There are a couple of reasons for that. First, it's important to understand that the unemployment insurance program, which is administered at the level of the 50 states, is funded by both employer and employee contributions. W-2 employees contribute via a payroll tax deduction. ICs receive all of their compensation without any payroll deductions, so they're not paying into the system. And on the employer side, their contribution is based in part on the total amount of their payroll, which includes only their W-2 employees. So the businesses that engage independent contractors aren't paying into the system for them either. And this explains why traditionally ICs are out of luck when it comes to claiming unemployment benefits. But the CARES Act recognizes that there are a whole lot of self-employed people whose incomes have been decimated by this crisis. And as such, it contains relief for them too. Specifically, through the end of the year, ICs who meet the stated criteria can receive benefits through their state unemployment program to essentially the same extent that they would if they were W-2 employees. The IC needs only to certify that he or she has been adversely impacted by COVID-19, and but for that, would have been able and available to work as usual. You see some examples here of some circumstances that would qualify, but I want to stress that I suspect this requirement will be very loosely interpreted. The amount of the benefit will be determined under the computation scheme of the state of the independent contractor's residence. But we do know that it will be based on the IC's net income for the last tax year, 2019. In addition, the IC will be eligible to receive an additional $600 per week for up to 4 months. And that amount is available even if the worker was previously earning less than that. ICs who seek these benefits should contact their state unemployment benefits agency. And I should note that application procedures do vary from state to state. Moreover, because expansion of the program to the self-employed is brand new, there may be some delay while the states figure out how to handle these new applications. ASTA plans to add links to all of the state unemployment agency websites to its COVID-19 member-only resources shortly, so be on the lookout for that. Now we'll shift gears and consider what's available for those among the largest players in the travel industry. I'm speaking here about companies with more than 500 employees. As Evan and Zane both noted, that's a very important threshold, since most employers with 500 or fewer employees will have access to the new SBA Loan Program that Genevieve will be discussing shortly. So what does the CARES Act have for the largest agencies, those not eligible for the new SBA program? In short, $454 billion in loans and loan guarantees to support businesses that have not received adequate relief from the other available loan programs. Note that this amount, $454 billion, is in addition to the $25 billion earmarked for the airlines and travel agencies that Zane mentioned in his introduction. These loans are made at prevailing, meaning pre-COVID-19 interest rates, with terms of up to 5 years. Application procedures will be published soon by the Treasury Department, and once they're available to us, we'll be in a position to share more with you. I also wanted to provide an update on the existing SBA loan program that many of our members, including independent contractors, will qualify for, as we've been getting many questions about these loans following our webinar held earlier in the week. To recap, for those of you who weren't on Monday's webinar, businesses with 500 or fewer employees who have suffered a, quote, substantial economic injury will qualify. I should note again that the business need not have any employees to qualify. So ICs and the self-employed will also qualify. You just can't have more than 500 employees if you have any. Loans of up to $2 million are available, and funds may be used for payroll expenses, rent or mortgage payments, utilities, and other ordinary obligations that you as a business owner will incur and need to pay in order to continue operating until the economy improves. The interest rate for a for-profit business is 3.75%, with repayment terms of up to 30 years. The first payment can be deferred for up to 1 year as well. I had an opportunity to participate on a webinar conducted by the SBA earlier this week, and I learned some additional information that I thought was important enough to pass on. First, separate and apart from the coronavirus or CARES legislation, Congress increased the lending authority for this program a few weeks ago. That's important because there's no shortage of funds available to loan. Second, every state and every territory, plus the District of Columbia, is now a declared disaster area for SBA purposes. So there are no longer any limitations of any kind based on where your business may happen to be located. Now, with respect to the application process itself, the SBA representative wanted to share that due to an extremely high volume of calls, the SBA website had to be taken down for upgrades. These have since been completed. So if you tried to apply earlier in the week and were unable to do so for technical reasons, please try again, as I've been assured that things should be working much better by now. I was also advised that while you can submit a paper application, online applications will be processed much more quickly. So that is your best bet. As a reminder, if you wish to apply, go to sba.gov and click on the coronavirus guidance link on the SBA homepage. That's all for me now. So now I'll turn it over to Genevieve.
Thanks, Peter. And thanks, everyone, for joining us on the call today. So if we can just go ahead to the next slide here. So Peter mentioned these small business interruption paycheck protection loans. So again, when we're talking about different buckets of relief, this is really designed for anyone with 500 or fewer employees. So the loans that Peter just went over, really are going to be designed for our larger members. But I want to focus a little bit on these small business interruption loans that are probably going to be a great option for some of our smaller members. I should note they are also open to independent contractors and those that are self-employed. So under this new program, it will be run by the Small Business Administration, and loans of up to $10 million will be available to any U.S. business that either is under the SBA size standard, which in our case is $22 million in annual revenue, or anyone with 500 or fewer employees. So that expansion beyond just the $22 million in annual revenue will mean that these loans are open to a much wider variety of people than the previous SBA loans that Peter described. So what makes these loans so appealing? First of all, as I mentioned, they are open to a really wide variety of small businesses. Additionally, there's no collateral or personal guarantee requirements for these loans. So one of the things that we heard loud and clear from members was that previous SBA programs had too many collateral requirements, and that accessing funds was often contingent on them being able to put up some kind of collateral. So in our cases, we're not manufacturers, we're not restaurants, we don't have a large inventory that we could use as collateral. So this loan, waiving the requirement for collateral or a personal guarantee, is really going to make it a lot easier for folks to access the funds they need for their businesses. The applications are also going to be a lot more streamlined. It's going to be a lot less paperwork, a lot less certification than other SBA programs have required in the past. So as was mentioned at the top, there is also some forgiveness built into these loans. So while it's not an out-and-out grant, it offers the ability, if you meet some of the requirements that are set out, that you'll be able to have a portion of these loans forgiven, essentially making them a grant to your business. So the portion of your loan that would cover your business's payroll, mortgage, rent, utility expenses from February 15th to June 30th will be eligible to be forgiven in whole or in part if you meet the criteria. So there's a formula laid out in the bill for what those requirements will be, and we're going to review those in a little bit more detail and then put some documentation together for you guys to understand those. Also, these loans are a great fixed low interest rate, and any of the loan that would be around after the forgiveness period, you have up to a 10-year term to repay. Additionally, we're going to be working on an FAQ. We've had a lot of questions come in about these loans. I know everyone's really excited to get digging into these. So we've already put together a draft FAQ. Obviously, we've got to wait till the legislation officially gets signed and the ink is dry, but that's going to be one of our first priorities, is getting an FAQ out to you guys so you can understand the exact formula for figuring out the amount that's going to be available to you, how to make the application, and how to make sure you're planning correctly to get the maximum amount of the loan forgiven. So with that, if we want to go to the next slide. So this is the other program that Zane mentioned at the top. That is the sort of really big marquee exciting program where we have sort of dedicated funds. So that while this might kind of be the most exciting, this is also probably the program with the most unknowns at the moment. So this is $25 billion in funds that are going to be available by the Secretary of the Treasury, and they'll be authorized to make these loans, loan guarantees, and other investments in support of passenger airlines, ticket agents, which is again the statutory term for travel agencies, and other related aviation businesses. So this is going to be a bit more of an ongoing program. So the Secretary of the Treasury is going to have to consult with the Secretary of Transportation to figure out how to allocate those funds. And once that bill is enacted and officially signed into law later, we're going to make sure that we're defending our members' interests here. But again, as was mentioned before, that 500 and under threshold really means that the vast majority of our members with fewer than 500 employees have access to those really wonderful, easy to apply for SBA loans, parts of which are forgivable, essentially making them grants. So while I certainly don't want to downplay this program, I would definitely say to folks, don't forget about the other programs we've gone over today. We will get you information on this one as soon as more guidance is available, but this is probably going to take the most time for us to sort through because it's going to have to be done in consultation with so many outside partners. But once again, as with the previous program I described, we are going to be putting together an FAQ, an overview video of this program as soon as we do get that guidance from Treasury and the Department of Transportation, and all that work is done, and we can provide that to you. So I'll turn it back over in just a moment here, but I did just want to remind everybody, our team is working really, really long hours. We're doing our best to get through the volume of member messages and get you the answers you need as soon as possible. So please be patient. And again, I encourage you to check out the detailed resources as soon as they're available. And once again, they're going to be hosted at asta.org/COVID-19 member. So with that, I will turn it back over.
Great. Just want to say thank you. Again, this is a truncated call today, just to give you an update again on this legislation that is going to be sitting on the President's desk later today. Again, want to say thank you to all of our partners, our supplier partners who've helped make this webinar and all the things we do here at ASTA possible, and we're certainly grateful for all the wonderful members that comprise our association. With that, unfortunately, we won't be able to take questions for today, but we will again rebroadcast on Monday at 3 p.m. and we will look to at 3 p.m. Eastern. We will look to increase the size and the availability of more people to be able to access these calls, because we know how important they are. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Monday.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening and have a great weekend.